The heavy oak door of the executive corner office clicked shut behind Emily, sealing in an atmosphere of suffocating corporate hypocrisy. For exactly 1,095 days, Emily had been the invisible engine driving Vanguard Global Logistics forward. While other employees clocked out precisely at 5, Emily stayed past midnight, decoding fractured supply chain matrices, rewriting multimillion-dollar client proposals, and fixing the catastrophic errors of a management team that frequently treated the company like an exclusive playground. She had sacrificed weekends, birthdays, and her own peace of mind, fueled by the relentless promise whispered by CEO Richard Vance 3 years ago, "Loyalty and hard work are the only currencies that matter here, Emily. When the time comes, you're the one sitting in the senior vice president's chair." Today was that day. Or so she had foolishly believed. Instead, an hour ago, Richard had summoned her to the boardroom, not to hand over the promotion she had bled for, but to introduce Chad Miller as the new senior vice president of operations. Chad, who had joined the company barely 4 months prior as a low-level strategic analyst, possessed zero field experience, a CV padded with fabricated metrics, and one definitive qualification that Emily lacked. He was Richard's nephew through marriage, a slick-haired corporate parasite whose primary skill was laughing loudly at Richard's mediocre golf jokes. When Emily had softly questioned the decision, reminding Richard of her 3 years of foundational sacrifice, Richard had waved his hand dismissively, offering a cold, patronizing smile that felt like a physical slap. "Let's be realistic, Emily," Richard had chuckled, leaning back in his leather chair. "You're an incredible worker, the backbone of the administrative trenches. But leadership requires a certain, dominant presence, a boardroom swagger. You're too valuable right where you are. Besides, Chad has a family name to uphold. Run along now, the quarterly reports won't file themselves." The memory of those cruel, dismissive words burned in Emily's chest like swallowed embers as she stood at her desk, looking around at the cluttered workspace that had consumed the best years of her youth. Every stack of paper, every color-coded spreadsheet, and every glowing monitor represented a piece of her soul she had handed over to a man who viewed her loyalty as a weakness to be exploited. But there was no dramatic shouting, no tearful outburst, and no undignified begging. Instead, a chilling, absolute calm washed over her. Emily opened her locked desk drawer, pulled out a crisp, pre-written sheet of heavy bond paper, and uncapped her pen. With steady, unshakable hands, she wrote her immediate resignation letter, explicitly revoking her personal encryption keys, database master passwords, and proprietary logistics algorithms that she had privately developed and licensed to the company under her own independent contractor status, keys that Vanguard Global Logistics desperately needed to survive the upcoming fiscal quarter. She placed the letter squarely in the center of Chad Miller's newly minted, expensive mahogany desk, slipped her laptop into her bag, and walked out of the corporate tower without looking back once. As the glass doors closed behind her, shielding her from the sterile hum of the office, she took her first deep, unburdened breath in 3 years, completely unaware that her quiet departure had just triggered a ticking time bomb at the heart of the billion-dollar enterprise. By the following morning, the catastrophic reality of Emily's departure began to hemorrhage through Vanguard Global Logistics like poison through an open wound. Chad Miller arrived at 10 a.m. holding an artisanal iced coffee, expecting a smooth transition where Emily would silently hand over all her accumulated knowledge and continue doing his work for him. Instead, he found an empty desk and a resignation letter. Panic instantly seized him when he attempted to log into the central supply chain server to approve a massive international shipping manifest, only to be met with a glaring red security error: access denied. Master database encrypted by creator. Chad's face drained of color as he realized something terrifying. Emily hadn't just been an employee, she was the architect who had built, coded, and maintained the entire digital infrastructure of the company. Without her master decryption keys, every single automated warehouse, shipping fleet, and inventory tracker was completely frozen. Within hours, total chaos erupted across the corporation. Millions of dollars worth of perishable cargo sat stranded at international ports because the automated customs clearance system, built entirely by Emily during a grueling 72-hour coding marathon 2 years ago, refused to recognize Chad's administrative clearance. Client phones began ringing off the hook, furious enterprise partners threatened to terminate multi-million-dollar contracts, and the company's stock price took an immediate, violent nosedive as automated trading algorithms detected a critical systemic failure. Desperate and sweating profusely through his expensive suit, Chad scurried into Richard Vance's office, stammering out the disastrous truth. Richard's face turned an ugly shade of crimson as rage replaced his usual arrogance. "What do you mean she locked the system?" Richard roared, slamming his fists onto his desk. "Call her right now. Double her salary. Offer her whatever she wants, just get her back here before the board meeting at 2 o'clock. With trembling fingers, Chad dialed Emily's personal cell phone number, putting it on speakerphone so Richard could listen. The phone rang 3 times before a calm, composed voice answered. "Hello, this is Emily," she spoke smoothly, the background noise suggesting she was sitting somewhere quiet and peaceful, perhaps enjoying a morning cup of coffee without the frantic hum of fluorescent lights. "Emily." "Thank God," Chad babbled frantically, his voice cracking with panic. "Listen, there's been a terrible misunderstanding about the promotion. Chad made a mistake, we want you back immediately. We are prepared to offer you the senior VP position, a 50% salary increase, and a corner office starting right now. Just log into the server and unlock the master database." A brief, cold silence hung over the phone line before Emily let out a soft, unimpressed sigh that cut straight through the speakerphone. "I'm afraid your offer comes about 3 years too late, Chad," Emily replied, her tone dripping with quiet, absolute authority. "And for the record, it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a choice. You and Richard chose to reward nepotism and devalue hard work. You assumed that my loyalty meant I had nowhere else to go and no self-respect left to defend. But you forgot one crucial detail: an empire built on exploitation always crumbles the moment the foundation decides to walk away." Before Chad could stammer another syllable, Emily ended the call with a clean, definitive click, plunging the 2 executives into a terrifying, echoing silence. Richard Vance stared at the dead phone, the chilling realization finally crashing down upon him like a tidal wave. His unbridled arrogance and blinding nepotism hadn't just cost him his best employee, it had just signed the death warrant of his entire corporate legacy. As the board of directors stormed into the executive conference room demanding immediate answers for the multi-million-dollar system failure, Richard sat paralyzed in his chair, watching his multi-billion-dollar empire slip through his fingers. Across town, sitting by a sunlit cafe window with a laptop open to a brand-new consulting contract from Vanguard's primary global competitor, Emily watched the company's stock crash reports flicker across her screen with a serene, victorious smile. She hadn't sought revenge, she had simply reclaimed her worth. And as she sipped her coffee, looking toward a bright, independent future, she knew the ultimate lesson of her journey: sometimes, walking away from where you are tolerated and walking toward where you are valued is the greatest, most powerful victory a human being can ever achieve.